Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Nostalgia. I'm super excited to have Jamie with me here today. She runs a few different meme accounts that you've probably seen over on Instagram, including Millennial Misery and Humorous Resources. And I wanted to have Jamie here with me today because her pages do exactly what Nostalgia aims to do, and that is to bring people together and make them feel like a part of something. And especially as the millennial generation, I think that we look at these pages and are like, wait a second. I think we all kind of had the same childhood to an extent. And that's something we like to look at too, kind of the end of the monoculture and our generation's transition into a world where algorithms make everything so much more individualized. So, welcome, Jamie.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Good. This is your first podcast.
Yes, it's my first pod.
This is exciting. And like I said a little earlier when we were chatting, I love the Rugrats shirt.
Wore it just for you.
So Rugrats is actually on Hulu, and I watched some of it with my family a few weeks ago, just because when you get that fatigue of like, haven't we watched every single thing that's streaming?
My kids this morning were like, what is this that you're wearing? What is this? And so I'm going to have to show them.
What do you think about that as someone who has kids? Do you want to show them now that old cartoons or things that we watched when we were growing up, now that they're available on streaming, which we never thought would be possible? Do you want to show it to them, or how do you feel about that?
Yes, I want to show them everything that I loved. And to be completely honest, shockingly, I have two boys. They want to soak it all in too. They're like, so you liked this when you were younger? So it's fun introducing different things. And actually, I'm excited about showing them Rugrats, because I remember Saturday morning sitting in front of the TV with like my bowl of cereal watching Rugrats and Doug. And I think that they would actually get a kick out of it and they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there was a balance, right, when we were growing up between watching TV, because I'm not going to lie, I did watch a ton of TV, but a balance between watching TV and playing outside. How do you feel like,
Sure.
Now having kids in the era of technology, like, has that balance shifted at all?
For sure. I think for my husband and I, we have tried to make sure that the kids aren't dependent on tablets or electronics, and which is hard because all their friends have the iPads, and so they have those things, but they're very limited on time. And we kind of function as, it's a nice day, go outside. And so, like, for instance, we just bought this water slide
Cool.
for them because we want them to be outside. We want, my oldest wants to play Fortnite. That's all he wants to do. So to kind of like have the same childhood as we did, kind of growing up with that, being outside and not just attached to electronics. I mean, not that I'm not attached to electronics. I mean, I'm chronically online, it seems. But just to kind of give them the same childhood that we have, to a point.
Yeah, definitely. When did you start your meme accounts?
So I started Humorous Resources in September of 2020. I started it as a creative outlet for me. I've worked in human resources the last 18 years of my life, and I'm still working in healthcare, but at the time, and during the pandemic, working in HR healthcare was kind of like a nightmare. So it was just kind of a creative outlet for me to create content, but then also finding content that I found funny. And it really kind of took off. Oddly enough, I didn't realize there was that many HR people that have the same weird sense of humor, but it also kind of put a different spin on just like corporate millennials in general. And it's kind of taken off with all corporate millennials, not just HR people. So then last summer, I think all millennials have a soft spot in our heart for like 90s culture and like 2000s culture, and just very nostalgic. And so I really wanted to create content for that, just because it's something that's near and dear to me. And that's why I created Millennial Misery. And I'll be honest, Millennial Misery was kind of just my second baby. At first, I wasn't putting as much effort into it, but it's grown even faster than Humorous Resources. And it's become um, just such a fun outlet, I think, for to us adults or millennials, just to kind of laugh and commiserate and remember all of the things from our childhood that just we didn't realize how much like serotonin it brought us. Like for instance, last night on my stories, I posted someone walking through like Kmart, like an old video, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why does this make me happy?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I had one of those moments too recently where you remember one thing in particular. I actually have a Pinterest board also dedicated to those things. I think I named it specific nostalgic moments, where it's like something very very specific, but you're like it's mostly Barbies, to be honest, or like very specific toys that I had when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid, and you barely even remember these things, but then
Exactly.
when you see it, just that like rush of excitement that you get. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm having dinner with my family a few weeks ago, and I'm thinking of a computer game, and I'm sitting because that's what I do. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, guys, what was the computer game where it was like, it was definitely from the mid 90s. You were in a house and they're like, anything else? And I'm like, no, that's the only thing I
All I got.
remember. And it's even a faint picture in my mind, but it's embedded so deeply into my subconscious mind that I know what I'm talking about, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what the name of it is, and I don't know what it looks like, and I have no further identifying details. My family's like, this isn't helpful at all. But I found it the other day.
Oh, I was about to say, what is it?
It is Fisher Price's dream house. So
Oh,
remember
I
like
don't.
those the Fisher Price dollhouse, the white
Yeah.
one with like the pink and the blue and the little furniture. So they made a computer game of that. And there's a YouTube video of it, because of course there is. And it is 16 minutes long. And it brings you through all the different rooms of the house and then the different options for gameplay. And all of the sound effects, I think the sound effects were really what got me, because I'm like, I remember all of these voices, all of these songs. Um, and it was pretty amazing. And I'm like, now I could just watch this YouTube video if I ever
If you ever.
need a little boost.
That's funny. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love, I was counting the other day and I was like, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, like from Sesame Street. It's things like that you don't even realize that you're incorporating from your childhood into life today.
I do that constantly. And it's really funny because that's almost kind of baked into my family's sense of humor, because they'll do it too. My parents will do it. My mom or dad will say something that only my mom or dad will get. And then they'll explain, oh, it was from this TV show in the 1960s or in the 70s. And now you can pull everything up on YouTube. Or they can be like, hey, that TV show is actually streaming. Let's watch it. And so it's been even an experience for me finding out even more things about the past, not only from my childhood, but even from my parents' childhood,
Yeah,
that I
from
had
theirs as well.
no idea even
Hmm.
existed. I think it's really cool to see that cycle continue.
For sure. I love that. And I love that I was able to find my brother. He's 12 years older than me. He was on a show on MTV, a game show on MTV, like I want probably in the early 90s. And I was able to, I mean, it took me forever, but I found it on YouTube. And that was just kind of fun because I have a VHS of it, but I don't even have a VHS player. So
Mm-hmm.
it was fun to be able to even pull that up. And that wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you're gonna have to send that to me. That stuff is so much fun, and I think that I've gotten rid of a lot of things. And I think that that's something interesting too that I'm seeing now, where we will see a lot of content online where you have actual, I mean, I call them artifacts, but actual clothes or bags or toys or games from childhood. And I really don't have much anymore.
I don't either. And it makes me sad because I wish that I hadn't gotten rid of some of it. I think the only thing I have is like my Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the original fat Game Boy. But that's really about it. And it makes me sad because I just think of all the stuff that I could have right now, but who knew?
Who knew? And I think sometimes too, like my parents must have thrown away things as
Oh,
well. Like one day you had it and then it's 20 years later and you don't have it anymore. It went somewhere
I
between
am
then and now.
I'm for sure once I went to college, my mom was like, she doesn't need any of this, which is true. I didn't. So,
Yeah, I think that's something I'm trying to reconcile to realizing that do I need to go buy expired Spice Girls lollipops on eBay for $225? Maybe. Or me and my sister have been thinking about starting a spreadsheet where we just kind of catalog our life, kind of like make a database of our lives so we could remember what toys we played with that year or what TV shows were our favorites, just to have some kind of record, because
yeah,
ultimately, whether you have the physical object or not, the memories are still there.
100%. Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. And not even this today, this recording. I mean, this your podcast is the same, is kind of like collect categorizing and having that for future so you can have these memories.
That's a really interesting perspective to take too, because I think that when people talk about nostalgia and kind of like the nostalgia boom that's happening right now, sometimes it's looked at as kind of like an obsession with the past. And I don't totally identify with it because, as interested as I am in the past, or how I love to feel the serotonin and think about great memories from the past,
Yeah.
I also think about how they've shaped us and made us who we are today. And I thirdly think that I mean, I guess I will just say I think about the future as much as I think about the past too, in terms of technology and in new ways that people can be brought together and new ideas and just having that kind of futuristic look. I think that that's what makes nostalgia so accessible too, is because if you are totally in the present, especially the last 2 years, the present has been very overwhelming and the future
Yes.
can be so uncertain. So I think it's obviously a lot more comfortable for people to be a little more past leaning.
For sure. And I think that's kind of one reason why millennials are identifying, especially right now, like you said, the nostalgia boom is that was our safe place. That was our safe spot. Was that those, well, not, maybe not all of us, I shouldn't assume, but those memories, and the pink razor and the rugrats, those were our safe place. And then here we are, and it's very uncertain in adulthood. And I think that it's not necessarily living in the past, but just kind of remembering those things and having, your safe spot, um, is it's nice, and it kind of calms you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've seen a lot of content online nowadays talking about that kind of connection between millennials and work culture and mental health, and how they all, or lack their lack
Yeah.
thereof of the maintenance of your
Mhm.
mental health, but like
Yeah.
how those things all connect. And I think that now millennials are finally feeling, as adults, safe enough to be able to say, hey, I'm at this job and I don't think I'm happy, or at the very least joke about not being happy.
100%.
What do you think from the HR perspective? Like, how has the landscape of HR evolved since essentially our generation entered the workforce until now?
I think the workforce in general has a lot of catching up to do with, really taking a look at mental health in general. I think some companies are probably doing a good job about it, and some just aren't. And they don't fully understand the impact, especially like you said, the last 2 years. You know, just working in healthcare, um, and just seeing it from like the clinical perspective, um, it's been very hard. And I'm just saying because that's the life I've lived the last couple years in healthcare. Uh, it's been very hard, and it's nice to see that some companies are truly reaching out and providing resources to employees and providing days and um, giving resources to employees. But for real, there's so many companies that really need to step up and kind of um, get on it, because they're going to lose employees, and they have been. And that's kind of one of the things that I think has been interesting to find with Humorous Resources is it's kind of brought a community of people together to commiserate and laugh, and it's almost free therapy, making memes and having people laugh, and we can all get in on it together, and um and have that few minutes of just a bliss moment in our day.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a big proponent of the future of work for years now, since before Gen Z was kind of championing these ideas now. I've been talking about it for a while, and I remember being in environments talking about flexibility, and people would
Yes.
just be like, well, you can't just like leave for 2 hours in the middle of the day. I'm like, why not? I'll come back more productive.
Yeah. I'm still going to get my job done. Yeah, I actually started a new job about a month ago, and the flexibility, I worked in an office at my last job. There, we never went home during the pandemic. So now I'm able to work from home. I'm able to leave in the middle of the day if I need to, as long as I get my work done. And I can't tell you, I'm still not adjusted to it. And I feel like I'm doing something wrong, almost like it's been ingrained in us for so long, like I'm taking my lunch break early so I can run this errand. But it's not necessary in the current company I'm at. It's just like, you got your work done, go ahead. So absolutely, Gen Z, honestly, I truly will speak highly of them, because I think they are revolutionizing the workforce, and I think it's great, because I think a lot of millennials are then getting on board with it too, because we didn't know that um, this could be done, and obviously the pandemic has helped, and a lot of companies are finally realizing, hey, we could our workers, our employees are just as productive at home. So why do they have to work from an office? And I don't need to check up on them. And so um, I've it's really been so interesting from an HR lens, just because that's my focus, to see it evolve over the last 2 years. And honestly, I'm excited for the future of work.
Yeah, I am too. And having a chance to zoom out, because I am one of those corporate people lost. I left my corporate job 1 week before the pandemic. So that was crazy timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, people were like, wait, did you leave, once you found out about it or in anticipation of it? I'm like, no, not that. But yeah, I found that kind of bureaucracy and the red tape and the hierarchy that corporate could bring, it always, there was always friction between it and my value system, and the kind of enthusiasm and connection and curiosity that I always try to bring to everything, it just never felt like the right environment. And I think
Mhm.
that there was still in our time very much like a trying to fit in instead of the, well, maybe you're not meant to. Maybe you're meant to do something else.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
finally starting to see those possibilities for yourself. I think that relates to our generation in terms of trends and even the style too, where granted, I wore basically the stuff that I wear now is the stuff I wore in the 90s and the 2000s. It's just I have access to it because it's back in stores. But I would have
Mhm.
been wearing all of the stuff that people now associate with Gen Z if it was in the stores in the 2010s, I swear. Because as much as I love trends, I have my own like very specific personal style, but I think that a lot of people don't, where they'll say, wait, maybe now I should try that trend because I didn't have the confidence in high school, or maybe that was super expensive when I was
Mhm.
younger, and maybe now I can buy it. What do you think about that kind of having adulthood almost like as a second opportunity to really bridge some gaps that you might have still felt from when you were younger?
I'm kind of I've always kind of been like do what you want, do what makes you happy. Um my upbringing is so where I grew up um is a it was a very rich part of town, and I was not. So when, in the early 2000s, when they were wearing, True Religion jeans, I couldn't afford those. Um, I bought what was at TJ Maxx, or Walmart or Target or Massimo back in the day. So to me, I've never been, I like trends and I can appreciate them, but that's never been something that I always run to, typically because of my childhood. I couldn't necessarily afford trends like the colorful Dooney and Burke bag back in our day. I could never have afforded that. So that was never an option to me. So like it was funny to me when Gen Z was saying skinny jeans are out, and like the millennial uproar of being so upset about that. I'm like, but where would you want to wear? If you're comfortable in your skinny jeans, wear your skinny jeans. That's okay. Um, and that was kind of I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I love trends, and I love that some of the stuff from our childhood is coming back, and I'm able to kind of rock it. But I'm kind of the same way. If I liked it and it was in stores, I probably would have worn it anyway.
Definitely. What kind of things from your childhood or adolescence, whether it's music or movies or TV, what were some things that just defined you, that just made you who you are today?
So I loved hip hop. I mean, I still love hip hop, but Little Kim and Biggie were like my everything. Um, I remember I think it was in high school, we were reading Caesar, and we had to make a poster depicting all the characters of Caesar using celebrities. And, everyone did like Leonardo DiCaprio and whoever, was popular. And I did Tupac and Biggie and Little Kim. And, um, and I'm just a little white girl. So, I'm sure that, in this like rich neighborhood too. So, but that just, they shaped me. It's weird looking back on it that my mom kind of allowed me to listen to Little Kim, but I think she thankfully, and I hope that I'm like this as a mother, she allowed me to express myself however I wanted to. Um, and so Little Kim has always been like, I really thought that like I wanted to be the white her, which is crazy. Matter of fact, just a couple weeks ago, I got a Biggie tattoo on my back. It says it was all a dream. I mean, they really just shaped me. And when Biggie was killed, like I wore black um, every anniversary after that. I mean, it's so crazy how music can really like shape you into the person you are, and you don't even realize it until later in life. I didn't realize how much it shaped me. And I think growing up I don't want to say poor, but almost poor in where I grew up, um, it gave me something, like a morsel.
Yeah,
That's all I kind of
absolutely.
needed in that aspect.
Yeah, I want to ask you because, okay, in the late 90s, and we've talked about this before on the pod and just in my life as it comes up often, but BSB versus NSYNC and that kind of false dichotomy
Yeah.
in that they were like created by the same person. So really it was just
Yeah.
like marketing to pit us against one another. So we would like
Mhm.
buy more CDs, which worked. But do you feel like it was the same thing a little bit earlier, a few years earlier with East Coast and West Coast hip hop?
I mean, I think eventually it got like that. I don't think that was originally planned. Um, I think uh, it was originally just, you know, two different styles of rap, and then all of a sudden it became probably a little bit induced by the media, like a East Coast West Coast thing, because they used to all like they had all you know, collab together at some point. So
Where did you turn to get information in the 90s about music or like what CDs were coming out or what you could be interested in?
I had it was magazines. So I had like subscriptions to The Source. Um, and I mean I had like, you know, I think what, Teen People didn't teen wasn't there a Teen People?
There
So
was.
I had different magazine subscriptions, and obviously the internet was there, but it wasn't this like it is today. And you know, AIM just talking in random chat rooms on or like even kids in school. Um, that's kind of how, you know, how you got it back, that information back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because with the internet, you know, it was so funny. I was thinking about recently how even though the internet was there, it was nowhere near in the form that it is today.
No,
And
no,
the accessibility to information, it would be really hard to find things. And you would have to go out. There were not advanced algorithms in the way that there are today that are
no.
so specific and pick up on what you would want to read. Even a lot of articles that I find today are because Google suggested that I read them.
100%. 100%. There is like I said, at my new job, a page pulls up for me, and it's and it's all the news, but it's mostly crime stuff because I've clicked on it before. And so now every day I'm like, oh, look, crime pods and all this interesting stuff that I found interesting because I clicked on it once. And it's crazy the amount that's kind of thrown at us in ads. And I very rarely get on Facebook, but even Facebook, just having that in your face and being consumed by it daily, as opposed to before you weren't consumed by that. You know, and you're absolutely, you couldn't just go to the internet and pull something up. You really had to know where to search and how to search. And we didn't.
Yeah. Do you feel like it is hard to maintain boundaries with technology when you run accounts where people kind of have these expectations now? They kind of forget, I think, with meme accounts that there is a real human being behind this account.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the times, I think the two accounts that I run, I think people don't all like sometimes some accounts are truly like a media company running them. And then some accounts, like smaller accounts, um, there's just one person or maybe two people that run it. And it, I don't think people realize that it's just a labor of love for us that are doing it. We don't get paid to do it. Um, I truly do it because it's fun for me. It's a creative outlet for me, and I enjoy the relationships I've created with people. Um, I try to respond to every DM. And I love connecting with people and just kind of like reminiscing about things from our childhood. Um, but yeah, I think sometimes people get very, they just don't understand that there's no cost. I don't get paid for this. This is truly my free time that I am finding and creating content. Um, and it's just something fun that I like to do. And I think, they see like the big accounts, um, and I'm not going to necessarily name them, but like the large accounts that actually get paid. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just little old me running these two accounts.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference where from the inside, it's like we know, okay, this is one person running the account, and maybe
Hmm.
they have a merch store or somewhere that they're able to make money from it, or some places have Facebook groups.
Hmm.
I'm even exploring, okay, what does community for nostalgia look like? Is it going to be a Discord community? Where is it going to be where all of these awesome people who are engaging with your content and they love nostalgia, they want to be a part of something, they want to share old pictures, they want to share old stories? Where
Hmm.
is the place on the internet where, in a positive way, they can come and congregate? So it's exciting to explore that. But right, there's a difference between a community driven account versus a large scale media company that
Hmm.
runs a meme account.
Absolutely.
There is a difference, right, in terms of that. I mean, just from a sheer bandwidth
Yeah,
perspective, you're literally one person.
exactly. And I was crazy enough to start a second account. And, I have a real full time job, and I have children and a husband and responsibilities. But it's something I do enjoy doing. So I'm not complaining by any means. And I'm so excited that the accounts have grown, and I have true friendships that I've made from them. But it is just little old me. I mean, some days I'll be honest, I don't feel like posting. Like if my mental health is in the dumps, I don't want to post. And it's hard some days, and it's it's like I don't feel like being witty and clever today.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a certain topic or a certain thing that you talk about that maybe more so than other things people really respond to?
Anything like so on millennial misery, anything related to like MTV back in the day, um, like old school Britney, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, TRL, any kind of that kind of nostalgia seems to always pick up. Also, comparing our 20s to our 30s is always a hit. People seem to laugh really hard because I mean, even this morning I tweeted, at 22, I was like, okay, if I can go to bed by 3:30 in the morning, I'll make my 8 o'clock class. But now I'm like, it's 8 o'clock. I can't pick a movie. I got to go to bed. I can't do this. Um, and then on humorous resources, I think any kind of work from home humor always hits because there's so many corporate millennials working from home now. It just it's very relatable humor.
That's amazing. We've talked about so many of those things on Nostalgia because even me too, those are some of my favorite things. And I think it's really exciting that millennials have somewhere to go
Absolutely.
to experience this. So for your followers who are maybe a little bit younger, maybe they're in their 20s and they're nervous about getting in their 30s, or you have millennials in their 30s who really just still don't feel like adults yet, even millennials in there, if not approaching their 40s. What would you have to say about how, because I will argue that my 30s, even though the entirety of them were spent in a pandemic so far, they're still better than my 20s for so many reasons. What would you have to say for people who kind of have that fear of getting older?
I um I would say honestly, I've enjoyed every step of the way. There's definitely things that I think you can miss or reminisce from as you get older. Oh, I wish I was this or that. But truly, I think you kind of learn a little bit more and you're giving yourself more grace and you're just growing into this beautiful person. And all of those things that led up to it have shaped you into who you are today. And I think that's beautiful. And that sounds very cheesy now that I said that out loud. But I think that's beautiful. And I think that's kind of a part of growing older, right? Is having all those experiences and making you wiser in the end.
That's so true. Thank you so much for being here with me today. This went by so
Yeah,
fast.
it totally did. I had fun. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And for everyone watching or listening, make sure to check out our other episodes of Nostalgia where we talk to Vinny, who was a talent exec at MTV during the 90s and 2000s, which I told him, other than being a backup dancer, that was my dream job.
I
And
listened to him. Oh my God, that was crazy.
yeah, it's so good. We talk about BSB and NSYNC. They somehow come up in like every other episode. TRL, we love it. And that's ultimately, again, what we do here is to have these deep conversations about superficial things and unlock those core memories. And also make sure you're following Millennial Misery and Humorous Resources because they are the best. And in this age of kind of overstimulation of the internet, it's one little corner that you can go to find like-minded people. And thanks so much, Jamie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, we'll see you next time, guys.